Butter, biscuits, and bread. Welcome back to Sound the Siren. I'm Xavier.
I'm Dylan. Welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we will be doing a review of the first month of the NBA. Xavier has some headlines, and we're going to once again predict our award winners, but with the knowledge of what has happened. So, Xavier, I'll let you start us off with the MVP so far.
At the moment, my MVP is Kevin Durant. I've got LeBron James and Joel Embiid really close because obviously they've both started with great seasons and have their teams right up there in the playoff bracket. But I think KD, he's been so good. I mean, he's just come back from his Achilles injury, and everyone was thinking he's going to be like 80, 85% of what he was before his injury. But he's come back and he hasn't missed a beat. He's been 100% so far. I think he's averaging over 30. We've seen him get triple doubles. We've seen him, his playmaking ability looks like it's stepped up. His athleticism's still there. So I'm giving it to him. And Jokic, I would have given it to Jokic as he's averaging like a triple double and leading the league for assists, which is insane for a center. But because his team's been not just bad, but they're not even in the playoffs at the moment, definitely underperformed, I can't give it to him.
That's fair enough. I haven't taken winning into account, and my MVP is Nikola Jokic. Such a presence for his side and is so prominent for that team that is revolving around his offense at the moment. And with Jamal Murray in a little bit of a slump, Jokic has been monumental. And if they do make it to the playoffs of the end of the year, I do believe they can deal some damage to other teams.
Yeah, definitely. I had the Nuggets finishing first as far as seeding is concerned, as I've said in previous episodes. And if that was to happen, or even if they creep into the top four, I think it's definitely going to go to Jokic. I mean, he's, as I said, like a triple double as a center is insane. So it's definitely going to go to him if his team starts winning.
Sure is. The next award we have is the Rookie of the Year.
My rookie of the year is the man that I'm wearing the jersey of today. Just came in, LaMelo Ball. He's leading all rookies in points, rebounds, assists, and steals. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but it definitely was at some stage. And he's become the youngest player to ever get a triple-double. So I think it's him for me at the moment.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you, and I know you'll be happy with this LaMelo Ball. He hasn't been too inundated by the big stage, and he's proved all of the dubious people wrong. Shout out to Tyrese Halliburton, who I think's been impressive as well, but not Rookie of the Year standard, but he will be handy for the Kings long term.
Definitely. He has been very impressive. Your defensive player of the year, Dylan?
My defensive player of the year has to go to Anthony Davis. It's difficult to pass him at the moment. He's a genuine brick wall and is holding his own alongside Montrezl Harrell and the Lakers, a top seed in the Western Conference.
I wanted to give it to Anthony Davis, and he was my prediction at the start of the season. But I've got to give it to Miles Turner. I mean, the Pacers have been very good. And what's incredible is at the moment, he's averaging 4.2 blocks per game, which is insane. And you may be thinking like, oh, Miles Turner, a bit of a weird name, but he has finished fifth in Defensive Player of the Year. I think that was in 2018, maybe 19. But it's a good finish. But at the moment, it's got to be him, I think. 4.2 blocks is ridiculous.
You know what's funny? I do actually have Miles Turner written down here. I was going to mention him, but just wanted to wait, and I'm not surprised by you having him at all as your pick. He's been absolutely amazing, and the Pacers surprising a few teams.
Mm. They have been
Yeah.
really good, the Pacers. I think they might take a little bit of a step back now that they've lost Oladipo, but once Karis LeVert comes back, they'll start to pick it up again.
Who is your most improved player, Zave?
My most improved player, I want to give honourable mentions to Christian Wood, Chris Boucher, and Jeremy Grant because all of them have taken massive leaps. But I'm giving it to Julius Randle. I mean, both him and the Knicks have taken big steps in their games. Julius Randle's points have gone from 19.8 up to 22.8. Assists have gone from 3.1 to 6.1. Rebounds 9.7 to 11, which are career high in all three major stats. So I've got to give it to him.
Yeah, the thing with Julius Randle for me is he's always had an impact, but now the stats are actually beginning to show for him. So
And the winning as well, which helps.
yeah, no, but my most improved player has to be Christian Wood. I was expecting a leap, but this is more than a leap, putting up consistent 30 pieces and being the energetic force that the Rockets needed. And once again, like the Nuggets, maybe the Pacers, they can surprise many teams in the playoffs with their pickup of Oladipo.
Yeah, I think they're not going to be as good as some people thought. Obviously, that's going to happen when they lose a superstar like James Harden. But they've been better than I thought they would be, so it'd be interesting. Your
I
coach of the year, Dylan?
Before we move to the coach of the year, I do want to give a shout out to Jeremy Grant. His development in the last 6, 7 years has been unbelievable from OKC to Denver as a role player, a couple of teams before that. But now he is the true heart and soul of the Pistons, with Blake Griffin having possibly his worst year of all time, which is sad to see. I like Blake, but yeah, Jeremy Grant has been very handy for them.
Yeah, I think it helps a lot as well that he's gone from the Nuggets and coming behind Jamal Murray, Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., and even like Paul Millsap, and now he's gone to the Pistons and he's like the guy. He's
Yeah.
their first option, obviously with Blake not being as good, but the opportunities are there for him and he's thriving at the moment.
My coach of the year may be a little surprising, and I'm going to give it to Quinn Snyder. He deserves some recognition at the moment with the Utah Jazz holding a 10-4 record. They're third in a stacked Western Conference, only astern of the teams of LA, which isn't surprising. We knew they were going to be up there. In an award that is hard to hand out at the moment, I'm recognizing Quinn.
That's a good pick. My coach of the year, however, is Doc Rivers. The 76ers are equal second in the East, behind only the Celtics, equal with the Bucks. And I think a lot of people didn't quite expect them to be there. I know the additions of Seth Curry and Danny Green has helped with their stretching, but I mean, they've been a little bit decimated with the COVID-19 protocols. I mean, they've lost their rookies for extended periods of time. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons have both missed time, but they're still going really well, and I think Doc Rivers is a fair bit to do with that.
Yeah, and another team that has been affected by the protocols is the man Goran Dragic's team, the Miami Heat, who I'm a fan of. Yeah, a little bit decimated again, but Goran Dragic has stepped up. The Heat are struggling, 5-7, but the Dragon has averaged 15 points, a couple of rebounds, 5 assists, and half a steal thus far. It was crucial last year as well, and is proving to be a handy asset for them once again.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick as well. My sixth man of the year, I don't think it's going to go forward because he's definitely going to start now that he's on a new team. But at the moment, it's Karis LeVert. He's averaging 18.5 points coming off the bench for what was the Brooklyn Nets, but will now be the Indiana Pacers. I think he's going to keep the points there, but he's going to start. So I think people like Derrick Rose, as you said, Goran Dragic, and other people like Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams as well will all come back into the race after he's gone.
Yeah, and that's one of the trades we're thankful for because of his lump in his hip, or sorry, that was a particular word for it, but we're glad that he's okay now, and we'll hope that he comes back stronger than ever.
Yeah, I think that's good. He's got to be pretty happy with that. I think he said in an interview that it might have saved his life, and it didn't sound good, like what the injury was. I think they said it was a small mass on his hip or something.
Yeah, that's it, small mass.
Which just sounds dangerous. So it's not something. Perhaps he's happy that he found it, but not so happy that it was there. So. Now, I got a little game to play here. I'm going to read you out the current playoff standings, and I want you to give me the team that you think is most likely to fall out. So in the East, we have the Celtics, Bucks, 76ers, Pacers, Nets, Knicks, Cavs, and Hawks, with obviously no Heat or no Raptors. Who do you think is most likely to fall out?
Definitely the Knicks and the Cavs.
I agree. I was watching The Jump, and they've done this same segment, The Jump with Rachel Nichols, and everyone said they believe the Hawks and the Cavs. To be honest, I don't see the Hawks falling out of it. At the moment, they are 8th, but they're 8th, and Trae Young hasn't fired at all.
Yeah,
He's been quite poor this season, to be honest, and he's gonna come good, and so are they, I think. So I think they're almost a lock at the moment. Although Heat and Raptors are both missing, do you expect both of them to come back in?
Well, they play the Raptors tomorrow, as of today, actually. So that'll be an interesting matchup, back-to-back games, and I think that'll put one of them into the 8 if they do win. So that'll be an interesting matchup for sure. But yeah, I believe the Knicks and Cavs will fall out. However, the Knicks have been great. They've been awesome, and Alec Burks is still injured, and he's severely underrated.
I think the Raptors is a bit of an interesting situation. Obviously, over the last couple of years, they've lost Kawhi, Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, and Danny Green, and et cetera, who were big pieces of a championship team. I mean, like they're all championship veterans. So do you expect them to trade Kyle Lowry is my question. He's now 34 years of age.
Yeah.
He's best basketball was probably behind him. He was an all-star just last year, but I think he's still got obviously lots of talent and lots of skill to contribute to maybe a contender. Do you think he could be traded?
Yeah, look, he's still averaging high 20s in the points, and they do have some other assets such as Chris Boucher, who stepped up, and I know you mentioned him before. I'm not too sure. Has there been rumors so far?
I don't think there's been so many rumors.
Yeah.
It's been talked about a little bit, but I know there were rumors last year about them trading the three, Gasol, Ibaka, and Kyle Lowry, because people didn't think they were going to compete for a championship without a Kawhi. But now they've seemed to have dropped off, and they've got their time frame doesn't seem to be right now. I think they're going to be towards the bottom of the East, but I still think they can make the playoffs.
Yeah, look, if the Raptors do elect to rebuild, there's certainly nothing to be sad about. They've won a championship. Lowry's given them his all, and they've been a great franchise for the last 5 years. So,
Yeah, I think all Raptors fans knew that the Kawhi Leonard situation was really a one-year rental, and
yeah,
every time, 10 times out of 10, they're going to take the deal anyway. Because if they say you get this guy for 1 year, but you get a championship and then you lose him, they're going to take it every time.
yeah. And it's not like they're not contending at the moment. Siakam's just like Trey Young having a downward year, but he'll pick up, as will Trey Young. And Luka Doncic as well, who was struggling, has picked up in recent games. So they'll all come back into form.
Just before we move out into the West, I do want to give a shout out to the Celtics. They're at the moment they're outright top of the East, and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have both been very big this year, and they've been so good that you probably don't even know Kemba Walker is missing. I mean, Kemba was an all-star just last year, and it's incredible to me. I thought they weren't going to be as good this year after losing Gordon Hayward, and I thought they were only really five guys deep in their starting five. But even with Kemba out, they've done really well. So congratulations to them. Now in the West, Dylan, we've got the Lakers, Clippers, Jazz, Suns, Spurs, Blazers, Warriors, and Grizzlies, missing the Nuggets and the Mavericks, who I thought would be certainties, and even the Pelicans. Who do you think is most likely to miss from there?
Even the Rockets as well. It's a seriously contested West. The Spurs and the Grizzlies for me. However, the Spurs have been very impressive thus far.
Once again, I agree. I agree, Dylan. I think the Spurs are towards the top end, but I still think they're probably going to miss out. And the Grizzlies as well. But they are eighth without Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., who are arguably their two best players. So they've done well there. And the other one as well could be the Blazers. I mean,
Yeah.
because now they've got Nurkic injured and CJ McCollum are injured for, I think, 4 to 6 weeks, they said, for CJ. So they might fall out and maybe even do the same thing as they did last year and creep back towards the end of the season.
Yeah, the Grizzlies without Valanciunas for the next few weeks as well. But there's barely a dent in the season. We're 14, 15 games through. There's 72 to be played, I believe, along those lines, something along those lines. So yeah, plenty of time for teams to come back together and get up the ladder.
Now I'm going to go through some of the highlights, I guess, of the season so far, some of the biggest news, and I just want to get a couple of your thoughts on each of them.
Sure.
LaMelo Ball became the youngest ever to record a triple-double. What were your reactions to that, Dylan?
Look, I wasn't really surprised. I knew he's talented. We grew up watching him back at Chino Hills High School, and he had 92 in one game. So the potential and the talent is there. He just had to put it into his game style, and that's what he's done. He's the ideal playmaker. He can shoot the ball somewhat. He's getting better. He can score the ball, and he's a point guard who can rebound. So I wasn't really surprised at all.
Yeah, same for me. Obviously a big fan, but I find it amazing that both him and his brother have been the youngest person to record a triple-double at different stages.
Yeah.
Steph Curry drops to 62, probably the smallest piece of news in this slot, but whenever a superstar of his caliber drops a career high, it's always going to be news.
Look, smallest bit of news for you, but for me it was very annoying because I was playing you in fantasy that week. I was 5-0, and you have him captain, and he absolutely destroys me. You beat my unbeaten record, so happy for Steph, but not happy in terms of fantasy. But look, he is an unreal player, and I'm glad to see him stepping up, as he should be without his stars around him. But Draymond is a great influence too.
Another piece of Warriors news, the Clippers blow a 20-point lead to the Warriors.
So did the Lakers last night. So I don't know what it is about LA teams blowing leads against the Warriors. But yeah, the Warriors, they're tenacious. They don't stop fighting. And look, that's what you get from Steph being a leader. It just influences the whole team.
And another piece of Clippers news and another piece of losing news. They were down by over 50 to the
Yeah.
Mavericks and lost by over 50. It was the biggest halftime losing margin of any game in the NBA history. Your reactions to that, Dylan?
Yeah, I didn't really have a reaction. I was in disbelief. I think we all were. To have 27 at half time and then allow 77, and they're both good teams, but on LA's floor as well. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous.
Now, the three biggest ones, we've got
Yes.
Giannis re-signs with the Bucks for the biggest deal in NBA history.
Yeah, wasn't happy as a Miami fan. I don't know who we'll have to go after now. Maybe Bradley Beal or just rebuild, I guess, because we're definitely not the same team. However, we have missed Jimmy Butler for most of the year. Avery Bradley's out. Tyler Hero's out with a neck strain at the moment. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that class this year's free agency class has diminished a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, LeBron's re-signed, AD's re-signed, Giannis has re-signed, and Paul George has re-signed. So that class isn't quite as good. Now onto the you were talking about the Heat has been missing a lot of players, as has a lot of the rest of the league. We've seen Seth Curry and Jason Tatum, as well as many more contract COVID-19, and many teams have had games postponed. I think the Wizards
Yeah.
last in the East, but have only played 11 games. So, what do you think about the NBA possibly postponing the season again? Do you think it could happen or not?
Look, I'm leaning towards no, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. We knew this was going to happen, a few setbacks along the way, but yeah, I think they'll continue the season even if games are postponed. The Wizards will come back. They had the Cavs twice, I believe, so definitely winnable games. And yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm leaning towards no though.
I think it won't happen, but obviously these times are so uncertain that
Yeah,
anything could really happen, and um, they could shut it down again, or they might not. But I think the playoffs will probably be held in a bubble again, purely because if you see a big player like Kevin Durant or LeBron or someone on one of the competing teams get corona, it might cost them a series and ultimately a championship, and that's
yeah,
not what the NBA will want, I don't think.
no,
And now, possibly the biggest news: James Harden was traded to from the
Brooklyn.
Houston Rockets to the Brooklyn Nets. We've touched on it a little bit throughout this episode. Speaking of Karis LeVert and Victor Oladipo, as well as many other pieces that have moved around. What are your reactions to this, and who do you think the winners and losers were?
Yeah, much like the 50-point lead from the Mavericks, I was in disbelief and I couldn't believe what I woke up to. But look, not everyone was a loser in the trade. The Pacers gathered Karis LeVert, who unfortunately has the mass on his hip, but he's a great six man. Oladipo to the Rockets, a handy piece for them. James Harden goes to the Nets where he desired to be, and the Cavs who picked up Jarrett Allen. So I think everyone was a winner in some way, and Brooklyn are just they could be unstoppable if they manage to have the correct game plan.
So the question that everyone's wondering, Dylan: Brooklyn or the Lakers? Who do you have in the 7 game series?
Oh, jeez. I really don't know, Zave, but I don't see Kevin Durant fully locking Anthony Davis down just because he's so slender and Davis is built, he's a brick wall, as I stated before. So I'm leaning towards a 7 game series, and I think the Lakers,
I think
no confidence at all.
that could be one of the better series for a long time. Hey,
Yeah.
LeBron and Kevin Durant going against each other in the finals once again, and a 7 game series again in the finals would be incredible.
Yeah.
That's all of my stories. Do you have anything else, Dylan?
I do have a couple things that just came off the top of my head. Russell Westbrook, there have been a couple of rumors about him being traded for Andre Drummond. How do you feel about that?
I I find it interesting. I think both the Cavs and the Wizards are in a bit of a weird spot.
Hmm.
I think at the moment the Cavs have too many big men. They're
Yeah.
not all going to get playing time. We saw them trade for Jared Allen. They got Andre Drummond, who's a free agent at the end of the year. Kevin Love. They've got two more, I think. Larry
Jarrett
Nance
Allen.
Jr. and someone else as well.
Jarrett
But
Allen as well, who they just picked up.
but Yeah, I think so. I think they've got too many big men. But if they trade for Westbrook, then maybe they got too many guards. Like we
Yeah.
saw, I think they drafted a guard this year. They've got Russell Westbrook, Colin Sexton, and Darius Garland, as well as Kevin Porter Jr., who is apparently going to get waived. So I think I'd stick with it at the moment, but we'll see.
And Bradley Beal.
There's going to be trade rumors about Bradley Beal all the time,
Yeah.
but he's re-signed with them, and I don't think he's going to leave because he had the chance to leave as a free agent, and he could have gotten traded, but he re-signed. But I think there's always going to be trade rumors. At the moment, it's his team, but they suck, and he's obviously really good, and there's always going to be trade rumors about the worst player on the the best player on the worst team getting traded to a contender to ultimately win a championship. But I don't know if it's going to happen.
Final one for you. Philadelphia turned down James Harden for Tyrese Maxey, Ben Simmons, Thibault, and 3 first-round picks.
I would have as well if I was the 76ers. If that's the deal that they were going to do, I think the Rockets were getting a lot more from them than they did from the Nets. In fact, I think the Nets actually won that deal. I thought they'd have to give up Spencer Dinwiddie and maybe an extra first-round pick
Yeah.
or something
Okay.
else thrown in there as well. So I think the Rockets came off a little bit worse for wear, but if they got Ben Simmons, I'm a big fan of Ben Simmons. I mean, he can handle the ball. He's 6'10", and he can get to the ring, and one of the best passers in the league. Only thing he can't do is shoot, but he's like a perennial all-star. He's already been an all-star twice, and he's only been in there for 3 years. So I wouldn't have traded all that whole package. Maybe I think I've heard from other people, and I think maybe myself, like Ben Simmons for James Harden is a fair deal, I think. Or at least Ben Simmons and maybe one other person like Matisse Thybulle or like Shake Milton or someone else like that. But to give all of those pieces for James Harden, I think is too much. So I'm glad they didn't do it. I'm sure most 76ers fans would be as well.
Yeah, good to see Ben starting to take his threes with confidence too.
Yeah, I saw the airball one as well. I don't think people should get on him for it because he's got to shoot them, but I've seen some people have, and I still think I'd rather see him take those shots than not take them at all.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I agree. So anything else to say, Zave?
Nothing from me.
All right, well, we'll enjoy the next month and possibly have another reaction. The AFL tier maker, we will be doing one before the season. We still have a couple of months, but I don't think we've fully discussed all the free agent moves, which we can do in an episode. Let us know. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment any other ideas, and we will catch you next time.